these are some of the preliminary terms that we need for solving right triangles. That's what we're going to work on. So when we say to solve a triangle, so sometimes people will say solve a triangle. What does that mean to solve a triangle? A triangle is not a problem. But solve a triangle, it means state all sides and angles. And sometimes we only want one side or an angle, but if somebody just says solve the triangle, that means we want to state all the sides and all the angles. So in trigonometry, when we have a triangle, we're going to start with right triangles. Trigonometry can also do triangles that are not right triangles, but we start with right triangles. So we have a right triangle, it has a right angle on it, and then it has some angle that we're interested in. So we usually call that theta. So that's this symbol is often used for an angle. It's the Greek letter theta, and it's just a circle with a line through it. And that usually stands for an angle. So we have some angle. And once we know what the angle is that we're interested in on this triangle, then the sides have names relative to that angle. So whatever side is across from theta, that's called the opposite side. And usually we just abbreviate that op. The side that is part of that angle, so this angle is part of this side, that is not the hypotenuse, but the leg that is part of that angle, that's called the adjacent side. And we usually just abbreviate that ADJ. And just like when you were learning Pythagoras theorem, the side that is across from the right angle, the side that's across from the right angle is the hypotenuse. And we usually just abbreviate that HYP for hypotenuse. So those are all the sides of the triangle relative to this angle. So one thing that we want to be careful of is if we had picked this angle up here, then this side would be opposite and this side would be adjacent. So if we pick this side, it changes the opposite and the adjacent. But for this angle, this one's opposite and this one's adjacent. So we always have to watch which angle is it that we're talking about. The hypotenuse, though, is always across from the right angle. So no matter which theta I pick, no matter which angle I pick, that hypotenuse is going to be in the same place. So that's opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. So once you have opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse, we define the three main trigonometric functions. So the main trigonometric functions are sine, and we want to say sine of theta. So whenever we have sine of something. Sine can never sit there by itself. The sine is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. So we're going to use this abbreviation OPP for opposite, HYP for hypotenuse. So sine theta is opposite over hypotenuse, and cosine theta is equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse. And tangent theta is equal to the opposite over the adjacent. So these three functions, these are also abbreviations. So we write SIN, it looks like it says sin, but it's pronounced sine, and the reason is this is actually an abbreviation. This is called sine, this is cosine, and this one is tangent. So usually we don't often write out these full words. We're just going to use these three-letter abbreviations for sine, cosine, and tangent. Then a lot of people, we have to memorize this. So no matter whose math class you are in, you have to memorize that sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, tangent is opposite over adjacent. So that we need to memorize. Many people write a mnemonic. Mnemonic is a Greek word that means something we use to remember something by. That's to remember by. So the mnemonic, weird word that starts with MN, the mnemonic that people use for sine, cosine, and tangent is we just use the first letters. Sine, opposite, hypotenuse. Cosine, adjacent, hypotenuse. Tangent, opposite, adjacent. So people write these letters out in that order. SOHCAHTOA. And then they say this weird word, sohcahtoa. So the trick is, as long as you can remember how to spell SOHCAHTOA, you will know that sine is the opposite over the hypotenuse, cosine is the adjacent over the hypotenuse, and tangent is the opposite over the adjacent. And this made-up word that's a mnemonic, people use that so commonly that you will hear people, when they're talking about solving right triangles, they will say, oh, that's a SOHCAHTOA problem. Use SOHCAHTOA. So if you ever hear people saying SOHCAHTOA this, SOHCAHTOA that, this is where that comes from. So that is the basic preliminaries that we need in order to solve the problems that we're going to look at about ladders, submarines, lighthouses, schools, and everything else.